cooperating with us. For outdoors and tactical tele event. Sign up for our giveaways and exclusive deals at tnvc.com/V-Shott with 2 T's. All right. So, do we think we're gonna get Don?
Let's try it right now. Fingers crossed.
I've logged in twice. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
All that stuff.
Hear me? Hey. Call Thomas Carlson.
Could have, that we need to have.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Well, let you see in the dark.
Yeah, right?
Okay, so apparently our technical difficulties continue. Listen, we are vast technology experts, not internet streaming video experts. So we will attempt to re-engage with Don tomorrow, but I know that somebody did ask about Night Ops Summit. That was going to be one of the things that Don was going to talk about tonight, so I'm not going to steal his thunder when we try to have him come back on tomorrow night. But Tnvc is the title sponsor of the Night Ops Summit. Do you remember what the dates are, just so we can throw the information out there for now?
22 to 24 November.
There you go.
Dilley, Texas.
All right, there you go, and I'll let and we'll let Don, we'll let Don give his pitch and tell you all the rest, the 5 W's and the great stuff that he's got in the works. So I guess let's go with that question then. Joe, you, if I recall, are a proponent of the mechanical switch.
I think it's more of a comfort blanket thing for me anyway. Specifically the PVS 14 style switch. It's it's a sets and reps thing. We know muscles don't have memory, old trope, but you're building like these neural pathways with, like, you don't think about getting in your car and sticking your key in. You're at an unconscious competence level before you know it. So that's how I feel about the PVS 14 rotary switch. It's on. It's
quality headset that plugs into my USB.
Twist to illuminate or pull out and twist for constant on to illuminate.
Make a difference.
It's a comfort thing for me. Most of my goggles have that switch on them. I asked. I'm going to bungle it, so I'm going to ask you. It was the Nocturne guys. We were talking about the Manticore shot, and I was like, "Well, I prefer this," and he was like, "Well, Grandpa, 2024 call." And there's some of the earlier systems that I've seen in a very, compressed timeline with anything more than a 14 or a PBS 5 or a PBS 7. The push button switch was it was the weak link. It wasn't ruggedized. The rubber was a little flaky, and you could push it too hard. And it's supposed to be made for a 19-year-old booger eater. Some of the new systems, I mentioned the Manticore. There's a good plug for the Manticore. I felt so strongly about it, I bought my own set. The switches on those are separate, distinct, and very ruggedized. It almost feels like the rubber on them feels like it's a polymer plastic, as opposed to just like a rubber cover over a micro switch. So, and ultimately, it's choose your own poison. the DTNVS, the PVS-14, the RNVG family, with the exception of the new RNVGA, are all rotating switches. Tom, could you flip that down for me? And just point to the
Make sure you're not the one who drops something now. I know that the
So-
weight distribution can get a little funky.
I mean, it's perfect, comma. Some people will complain about a snag hazard. Well, my rejoinder is that 4.5 inches of lens and plastic and polymer and steel hanging off your face is also a snag hazard. So in short, what are we going to define first?
Requirements.
We're going to define a requirement, and then we're going to start matching, like, okay, which image intensification system meets my dial, and my polymer, and my rotating switch, and my buttons. Joe's preference, the view from Joe's fighting position, is the rotating switch is superior because it's a tactile mechanical thing. It's like the clicky button on the tail end of a flashlight. You know exactly what you're getting when you push it or turn it in this case.
Mr. Director of Training, correct me if I'm wrong, we might have a program to where people can try out different
Are
systems.
we talking about that now?
I mean, you can.
Perfect segue into it.
And without getting too far into the shilling our own goods, there's it's an education class. It's not a training class. It's called Try Before You Buy. I'm full of colloquialism, so I like to call it the petting zoo. And you can actually come to class. It's a single night. There's no live fire, but it's a petting zoo. You're going to get to touch multiple headborne systems, helmets specifically, and then 8 different flavors, styles, and even types of phosphor screens, and get to determine what you may want. What you may purchase, and some feedback we've gotten is I was going to come and get a 14, and I bought 2 pairs of DTNVS. That actually happened 2 years ago, and then other people come in convinced they're going to get PVS 31s or a 1531 or DTNVS, and they're like, all I need is a 14. So it's a part of the training program. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It's a single night. It's fun. You can bring your friends. And there's some history of night vision and how it works, and then the bulk of the class is it really is like kids holding hands walking around the museum on a field trip. We go on little field walks, and then we rotate and rotate and rotate. If you come to that and you haven't experienced every color of screen, every type of housing, either monocular or fixed bridge or articulating, then you haven't been paying attention. I like it. It's a pretty good program. Not training, but education.
When and where is the next one, Joe?
You're gonna make me look at my calendar.
In the fall.
Yeah, in the fall of 2024.
Yeah.
We kick off in September in Great Falls, Montana, the first weekend, 4 through 6, up in Great Falls, Montana.
And you didn't have to look at your calendar.
It's because I was just looking at it. And it shouldn't be Ice Planet Hoth by that time. So if you're up in that neck of the woods, come see us. What else?
Well, so going back to the mechanical switch versus push button thing real quick. So, I wouldn't say that I'm on the, that I'm on the other side of that, in that, I use goggles with both mechanical switches as well as push buttons. What I will say is that from a design standpoint, one of the reasons that the push buttons, especially on a lot of the more complex systems and stuff like that are being developed and being fielded right now, one of the issues is that it's a lot easier to environmentally seal a push button. So, if you're wanting to talk about immersion rating, if you're wanting to talk about foreign debris, and as you kind of pointed out, not just the snag hazard thing, but, kind of the unintentional damage factor, a high quality push button at least is at least theoretically much more difficult to damage than a mechanical knob that's kind of sticking out. It can get knocked off, sheared off, and it is probably worth mentioning that, of the system repairs that we get, a large number of them do tend to be related to some sort of broken switch, broken yes, malfunctions with the switch, but then also just switches getting broken.
Would you consider systems like the 31 or the 1531 a rotating switch or a button, or yes? Because they kind of do.
I think yes is the more accurate answer, but I think in the way that we are discussing, because it is a manual knob that you rotate.
Yeah.
Then so it would be a mechanical switch that also has a push button function. So what I'm talking about more is like the flat pad buttons that you're talking about, not just on the Manticore, but also, on the F-Bino, our Artemis goggle, and a bunch of other systems. The F-Panos, actually, the FPGs have both the push button. I mean, that's one of the other, reasons that you're seeing more and more push buttons as well, is because, there's only, in a mechanical switch, there's only like so many functions you can practically integrate into it. And that's why, kind of from the get-go, like most thermals, think about the number of thermals that you can think of that have some sort of mechanical switch. They're all freaking push buttons, because, you have to go in there and you have to be able to get into the menu, and you have to be, so especially when you're talking about a fuse system like the FGE, the Fusion Goggle Enhanced PSQ36, or, the modern ENVGBs, they're all push button systems, and if anybody's ever used the ENVGB or any of those fuse systems, so it's only got two buttons, and it does have a mechanical knob. It does have the same or similar in function knob to the PVS-31 as well, but a lot of the menu functions and all that are controlled through these push buttons. So
So what you're saying is, come to the future, Grandpa. It's not 1985 anymore.
Like you said, define your requirement. Are you using a fused system that not only integrates a thermal channel and overlay, but also, at least theoretically, has augmented reality capabilities, that has a HUD built in, that, is literally tracking your GPS position? Or do you just need basically, PVS-14, a tube and a plastic housing with two lenses on either side of it? So, once again, define your requirement. And, oh, by the way, you're talking about it's easier to kind of weatherproof or waterproof a push button system. It's like, well, yeah, that's to mil standard 810G, and that's, depending on the requirement. I mean, because a lot of times for these systems, they're literally designed for submarine lockouts, because, the Navy guys use them as well. And so, a system may have to be rated for 66, for 66 feet, for a prolonged period of time. Do you need that level of immersion resistance? I would argue that the vast majority of users not doing submarine lockouts, Ian.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no, not doing submarine lockouts anymore.
Sticking on the
but may not need that level of immersion, whereas it may not, make a super lot of difference when you're talking about the difference between the environmental, the environmental rating for a mechanical switch versus a push button switch. And that's one of the things too, and I know that I made a whole big deal about, the mil-spec government-rated tubes, even in the giveaway system and all of our mainline kind of Tnvc systems, but I feel like that's kind of one of the most misunderstood aspects of, when people talk about mil-specs. First of all, what most people refer to as mil-specs are actually covered under mil standards, but all of that notwithstanding, a lot of times some of those requirements exist for, certain in extremis conditions that even most people in the military are not, typically having to worry about.
That is a huge rabbit hole, talking about AR-15s and mil-spec this, mil-spec that. Like, it's talking FOM and all the different specs for it too. We could talk about this for days and days on end and debate it.
Well, argue.
That's a given.
I warned everybody. I warned the entire internet that y'all were going to get sick of hearing me talk. And unfortunately, and maybe it's because I came up with V-Shott, it's perfectly structured for me to go down rabbit holes.
Oh, good. All right. Well, then we're going to stop that conversation. We're going to go to the live chat, take over a question. So I think I misunderstood the question about you being clumsy and dropping expensive items. I think they were actually talking about dropping on the website for new systems, and we will be announcing some stuff throughout the week. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to spoil it right now.
They're not talking about me bouncing a pair of DTNVSs off of a glass coffee table. What was that?
No.
2022.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, but apparently that first year they ended up buying some 1531s. So thank you for doing that, I guess. But yeah, there will be some product releases and some new programs that are coming out throughout this week. So stay tuned for that. We don't want to jump the gun and push out all that information all at once, and then you're like, hey, I don't need to watch the rest of it. No, it's not how it works.
Well, you can't win the Mod 3 Bravos if you don't watch the rest of it.
Exactly.
Or you just log in.
No, I mean, hypothetically speaking, you don't have to sit around and
hypothetically, all you do is sign up for it, but we don't want to tell them that.
I've already signed up 100 times.
Let's see. Will the nods with thermal built in be up for sale this year? No. Sorry. It's a contract system. It is not available for the civilian market at this time. That's not to say it's not going to happen in 10, 15 years. 10, 15, 20 years. That there might be a chance. Not right now. We don't have a timeline.
So there was time, and of course the first V-Shott in 2021 was the year that the PVS-31 and the 1531 and the GPNVG all became available for unrestricted commercial sales. So there are, unfortunately, at least from our standpoint, unfortunately from commercial customer standpoint, unfortunately, systems that are restricted for now. Some of them never end up getting unrestricted. Some of them, end up becoming unrestricted. What I'll say about the BNVD fused and the other fusion systems is that right now the lead time for a BNVD fused from L3 Harris is about 480 days or something like that. There are federal agencies, yes, the Fed boys, alphabet agencies, Hydra Dog, all that fun stuff, but there are agencies that have been waiting, over a year to get BNVD fuse systems. So with that kind of demand, right now, it's most likely unrealistic that that kind of system is going to be released for unrestricted commercial sales, at least until all that happens. Again, you may like it, you may dislike it, you may call us all military industrial complex bootlickers, but that's the way it is. But TNVC is always advocated for, and we've always been pushing, and we're always trying to get cool shit unrestricted. We're always trying to get cool shit available to the commercial market.
There's kind of a foundational push from
for
those three systems. Came from here, right? I don't know.
Yes.
I was just a
Well, yeah. I mean,
at the time.
It took a lot of work, with L3 Technologies, and then they had very recently become L3 Harris at the time. And then, you know, especially in the case of something like the GPNVG that's developed, you know, is developed in cooperation with the military. There's also an aspect of the program office has to approve of that as well. And so all that kind of goes into it. With that being said, you know, another one of those, you know, so if you are looking for, you know, some way to add a thermal channel, to add that kind of fusion capability to a standard set of NVGs, we do, Tnvc is also the exclusive distributor of the Optics One E-Cody, the enhanced clip-on thermal imager, the AN PAS 29 Bravo, which is issued with the Marine Corps Squad Binocular Night Vision Goggle set up with the PVS 31 Delta. So that is an option, and you know, in some cases, in some circumstances, because it really is just a little clip-on. We've got one of them, but we just didn't dig it out of all of the other gear that we've got laid out here. But we have one of them here that we'll probably talk about mostly on day 3 when we talk about advanced projects. But it's this little, you know, 3.5 ounce thermal camera with a little periscope on the end of it, clips to the end of a night vision device, and it actually projects a thermal image from a sensor into your NVGs. So there's a form of that capability that's currently available with additional products to support those kinds of capabilities on the way. But again, we'll talk about that mostly on Thursday.
Awesome.
Once again, I went down another rabbit hole.
Hey, just keep going. Keep going. You're doing fine.
Good job, Augie. So we have another question. You know, it's probably better that we talk about that tomorrow. But talking about pros and cons and applications of some clip-on, you know, weapon sights versus clip-on helmet thermal devices. I think that'd be kind of right up your alley, especially with a lot of the clip-on thermals and thermal scopes and things of that nature. Again, as Joe says, define your requirements, right? You're going to hear that a lot.
And I'm done.
So yes, we will talk about that a little bit more into detail tomorrow.
So in a little bit, we're going to jump into some messages from some of our partners that help to put V-Shott on. But before we get into that, so you know, all of us at Tnvc, you know, among the various other job descriptions and job titles that we have is, you know, obviously we also answer emails, answer phones, get a lot of questions from customers about various types of things. So, you know, one of the things on VAS 101 night that I wanted to do is kind of the FAQs, if any of y'all from your specific areas have, you know, some common questions, common themes that have come up that you know, might be worthwhile to kind of share with a broader audience. You want to start, Shane?
No, because I don't like being put on the spot when I can't prepare. Oof,
and yet you decided to come on to a live to a live program. Tom?
I'm happy to start. So at night goggles, the question that I think I probably field the most is night vision versus thermal. Thermal versus night vision. What's the difference and what do I need? Joe says it's all night vision, and I'll give you the ability to see in the dark. But we're talking about I-squared night vision or digital night vision versus thermal infrared technology. So the biggest difference is night vision is good for identification, not necessarily great for detection. Natural camouflage, good old-fashioned woodsmanship, or an animal hiding in the brush can still hide from night vision if you don't have eye shine, for example, off an IR light or things of that nature. Thermal is great for detection. much harder to hide from thermal. But it's not as good for identification, meaning you can't see necessarily as much detail in a human being's face or in an animal. That used to be very, very true 10 years ago, but that's changing a little bit now with new technology and 1280 resolution thermal and 1024 resolution thermal. You can actually tell the difference between, two different animals at distance, but just not as well as you can with night vision. So a couple other things that people don't realize is night vision can see through glass, thermal cannot. So if you want to use it for driving in the dark, night vision is your only choice. Also, you really don't have much depth perception with thermal. Night vision, you have a sense of depth perception. It's kind of learned, but you can use it to determine depth and field of view. Whereas thermal, it's much harder to do that, and it takes a lot more practice. But because thermal doesn't see through glass, you shouldn't drive with it, obviously, and you shouldn't really navigate terrain with it. You shouldn't walk with it because you're staring at for example, an LCD screen the size of your thumbnail, an inch or two in front of your eye, and you don't necessarily look through a thermal device like you do night vision. When you're looking through I-squared technology night vision, you look through the device, which is what gives you your field of view and your perception of depth. With thermal, you don't have that. So there's a lot of big differences between the two. Those are the main talking points that I usually start people with. And it kind of gives them an idea of where they need to start looking for what their specific purpose is.
Very good. Good job.
Good job, Tom.
Good job, buddy. I'm going to be like a good first sergeant and piggyback on what Tom said.
Oh, all right.
Some of you will get that. Tom mentioned, and we get this a lot. What I tell you earlier today, when you paint with a broad paintbrush, you get the paint splattered on you. Anyway, sorry. I'm just as bad as Augie about just weirder rabbit holes. I call it the perception of the lack of depth perception, and that sounds redundant and circuitous, but a monocular is not going to give me depth perception. No, it's a lack of sets and reps. And it's a software upgrade as opposed to a hardware upgrade. More on binos here in a second. But the more you use your goggle, if it's a monocular, the better you're going to be at running up and down stairs and doing an obstacle course and opening doors. Guys do it all the time. So it's sets and reps. One of our instructors said the worst thing you can do with your goggles is not use them. So if you don't buy goggles and take a picture and put it on the internet and then put them in your safe because you're afraid to use them or afraid to break them. So use them. We're stereoscopic vision. It's a big $5 word. It's not Wednesday. It's not big word Wednesday yet, but I'll use it today. And we're predators. Like our eyes are on the front of our heads, right? We have binocular vision. We're looking for prey. As soon as you drop binos in front of your eyes, your brain's no longer trying to resolve an aided eye and an unaided eye, so this lack of depth perception immediately goes away. That is a hardware solution, but what am I going to say next?
Software.
Define your requirements, and then if your budget doesn't match binos, like the least expensive set of binos it's a steep cliff to fall off, isn't it? Probably not you. You're the CEO of Tnvc, but so we get that a lot. Is there depth perception? Is the mono superior to the bino? The answer can be yes. You can do a lot of things with a monocular that you cannot do with a binocular. You can put it in your pocket. You can hang it around your neck. You can toss it to a friend. You can do a lot of neat stuff. Particularly, I found in the LA environment. Never been a cop, but all my best friends are. That's a great tool. One last thing, because I will ramble. Lights and lasers. We've seen a whole bunch of other, things bolted all over guns. I've got an IR illuminator and a light and a visible laser and an IR laser. And it just looks like, what was that old thing where it was like an M4 and it had like 8 M68s.
Oh,
Yeah.
or I don't know. Oh no, I thought you were talking about the. Do you remember the arms ring of fire that they had? It was supposed to prevent barrel shadow, and it was just like
Oh yeah.
a whole bunch of lights in a ring around the barrel.
Everything
Anyways.
makes barrel shadow. Do we want to talk about barrel shadow ring? That's another one. So hey, I'll be brief. Your light should be single spectrum, constant on. That's what we believe in. And then if you're going to have a laser on the end of your gun, it should be a multi-function aiming laser. It should have an IR illuminator, class 1, class 3, whatever. We can talk about that later if you want. And a visible laser for either aiming or signaling. Again, the view from Joe's fighting position is lasers are more of a signaling device because it's not a scalpel on the end of your gun. You can shoot with them, but I like to use them as a signaling device. And that's about it. You want to keep it as simple as you can. Last point is, I think one of the most rewarding things I've ever seen in class was the guy came to class and he had it was just as plain of an AR as you can get. He had a dot on it. And we zip tied a rental PEG 15 and taped a light to it. Now hear me out. Yeah, it's not the best solution, right? But that guy got nothing but software upgrades that entire class. And as opposed to coming in from a hardware solution, he had a super informed opinion. It was pretty cool. We offer rental gear, by the way. That's the last thing. We get asked that a lot from the training side. I don't answer as much emails as these guys do, because I don't have to. But on the training side, it's like, do I need all this stuff? No, we make Vic, thank God, the owner of the company, Vic, and a boss like Augie that kind of lets me run amok. We've got a fleet of goggles and helmets and multifunction aiming lasers that, as long as you get in on the cut, I don't think we've ever sold out a rental fleet, maybe 1 or 2 classes. They're available for use, and they can help you make an informed decision. Should you want to make a purchase after class? I'm not a salesman. Sometimes people buy things based on the words that come out of my mouth. That's it. I could go for the rest of the night.
Well, I'm sure it's got
The audience loves those taps.
Sorry, everybody.
Joe's here tapping on the fish tank. Sorry for all you fish out there.
All right.
You know, I think one of the common questions that we get is, do I go filmed or unfilmed? And that's a huge rabbit hole in itself. You know, again, define your requirements. You know, do you have a multifunction aiming laser? Do you not? Do you not have an illuminator, or do you? So define your requirements, define your environment, without getting too much into, you know, the specs and technology and everything. End users, from an end user perspective, you'll see about a 20% reduction in light transmission with a thin film system than an unfilmed system. So again, define your requirements, define your environment, and what you're looking to do with it. But that's the end user perspective on the easy, you know, nitty gritty, without getting too much in the weeds.
The nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty.
You know that people tune into this to go into the.
Let's go.
But well, I was going to say, yeah. I mean, do we want to talk some nerd shit about why about what? First of all, what depth perception actually is, what that term means, and why depth perception is so much better with the binocular system, with binocular vision and stereoscopic vision, as opposed to with the monocular. So, you know, basically what we refer to as depth perception is actually not just, you know, it's not just one thing. Two of the big components of depth perception, and because, you know, obviously people that either were born without sight in one eye or lose sight in one eye through their life, you know, they're obviously still able to function. You know, we're just talking about natural vision. We're not talking about, you know, aided vision with night vision devices and stuff like that. And it's because depth perception has several different components, you know, and to this discussion, kind of the most relevant ones are first of all, something that's referred to as motion parallax. So motion parallax is basically as like you move your head, you kind of are able to, by learning and looking at and training yourself to see how much the image that you're looking at shifts as you move around, that kind of gives you, that gives your brain, that allows you to kind of assess that difference, or that, not difference, distance. And so motion parallax, you're effectively going to get motion parallax, or you're going to get motion parallax kind of best, or with both monocular or binocular system. Both of your eyes, your brain understands how to process motion parallax. With a monocular system, especially if it's so dark that you're really not getting that much information from your unaided eye, you're basically having to train yourself to only use motion parallax for that depth perception. Whereas if you are using a binocular system, or if you're using your standard stereoscopic vision, why, as you pointed out, that most predators have stereoscopic visions, eyes in the front, is because of binocular convergence and binocular parallax, which is the fact that, as you look at something, and anyone's done this, hold your hand up in front of your eye and close one eye and then close the other eye, and you can see that it shifts slightly, and you're actually looking at it from a slightly different angle.
Camera one, camera two.
So as your brain, and this happens starting from when you're a toddler, starting from when you're beginning, from when you're beginning to learn to manipulate your environment, is that you start learning to use both binocular parallax and motion parallax, and that is, the combination of those things and a few other things are what we typically refer to under the broad umbrella of depth perception. So that's kind of the reason. So if you have normal, binocular sighted vision without using night vision goggles, then you have trained your whole life to use both that binocular parallax and the motion parallax. So wearing a set of binoculars, or wearing, a stereoscopic goggle, there's basically no learning curve, because you still are able to enjoy the benefits of both the binocular parallax and the binocular convergence, as well as the motion parallax. Whereas if you're only using a binocular, you have to learn to only use one aspect of kind of the broad concept that we refer to as depth perception. And that's why it's got a slightly longer learning curve, and that's, it has long been a joke about the PVS-7, and so the PVS-7 is a biocular device wherein it's only got a single image intensifier tube, but it uses a beam splitter and a prism to split the image into both of your eyes. And that's why, in my opinion at least, PVS-7 is kind of the worst of both worlds. And part of that is because the PVS-7, by doing that, because it's only one flat image, so there's no binocular parallax that you get from a PVS-7 single tube biocular system, but it tricks your brain because you're seeing out of both of your eyes. And that's why you see people, or at least I feel like I see people, I feel like, people have the most difficulty with depth perception with PVS-7 compared to either just a monocular, where your brain knows, okay, this is something different, so I have to adjust to it, or a binocular system where there's really not as much adjustment, other than, and this was a question that apparently came in, as far as, the fact that NVGs have a fixed focal plane. And what we mean by that is that, they're only able to focus on one distance at a time. So there's no autofocus. Somebody did ask the question about whether night vision devices are ever going to have some sort of autofocus function. I'm never going to say never. I'm going to also say that it's probably going to be, it's more likely going to be something that comes whenever it is, and we could talk about this, especially on Thursday, a lot more about, the outlook for digital night vision devices. But long story short, if you think about your smartphone or a camera or something like that, and you think about how good one of those things is at autofocusing, my opinion, I would rather learn to deal with the fixed focal plane right now. Technology might get better to the point where, I do trust it, but having, messing around with, supposedly.
There's a reason. Technology.
We are on the potential for automatic focus there.
All right, next question.
Are we,
I think I blacked out a little bit.
Dude, I think you lost me like 10 minutes ago. All right. What is the SNR on top spec tubes these days, and is it possible to get a 40 SNR?
that's classified. No, it's possible. It's.
I think you just dashed his heart, man.
It is possible to get. It is possible to get 40 SNR, and we've definitely shipped and sold systems with a 40 SNR. I'm not going to be explicit about what the kind of, very tippy-toppiest spec 4-micron MCP tubes that L3 is cranking out right now, because that's not that's not really. I was only halfway joking when I said that that's classified, or at the very least it's confidential. So I won't say what the highest theoretical value is, but I will say that they're cranking them up there pretty fucking high. With especially with the advances in tube technology, and yes. So 40 SNR, I'm not going to say that 40 SNR is commonplace. It's absolutely not commonplace. But 40 SNR is attainable. It's out there. It's out there and available for commercial customers.
But you may be waiting a while.
Yes, you may be waiting a while in order to get one. They're not they're not falling off trees, but they're out there, and it's possible to get them.
I think this is a good time to take a commercial break to one of our sponsors, and then we'll come back and answer some more questions and dive right into it.
Good job, Shane. You too, Tom.
Hey, I'm Jay from Willcox, and today we're going to talk about the Willcox Boss XE, the ballistically optimized sighting system. The Boss XE is the ideal sighting system. It's compact and features visible and infrared lasers, adjustable reticle, and unique dual trajectory switch that provides end users unprecedented versatility, allowing them to adapt to different scenarios. Hi, I'm Jay from Willcox, and today we're going to talk about the Willcox G24 Night Vision Goggle Mounting Solution. The Willcox G24 is the result of millions of hours of operational use, as well as end user feedback, to design the industry standard night vision goggle mounting solution. Willcox has created a simple and elegant design to meet the needs of operators. Pioneering breakaway operator. It's become the industry standard. As we open up, we're going to see products. Following that, the G24 also comes equipped with tools for tightening down screws should they become loose during operation. Let's take a look and go over some of the features. The G24 is available in two colors. The dovetail interface on the carriage housing can be moved along the bridge portion. The front button on the carriage housing is going to allow you to disable. Side of the mount, you'll find the goggles, or to stow them. Simply box once it's in position. To raise and lower the vertical plate, and then you're able to slide it. Side is going to allow you to tilt the unit either at the top of the unit is going to allow you to enable or disable the breakaway feature. When enabled, you'll notice that the mounting tab becomes slightly shorter. When disabled, the tab at the bottom of the unit is going to be a little bit larger. You'll also find a QR code on the side of the mount. When scanned, this QR code will take you to the product website where you can find the digital version of the G24 operator's manual and other technical documents and information. Now we'll go over the mounting procedures for the G24. For this, we're going to use a Team Wendy X-Fill ballistic helmet. The first thing that you're going to do is activate the release mechanism. The tab at the base of the unit is going to go up into the base to allow you to see into the shroud first, and then click the release mechanism to allow you to seat. The G24 is designed to be as intuitive as possible, allowing you to rely on muscle memory to make the adjustments and to place into operation your night vision goggles without having to waste any additional time thinking about what you're doing. Once the G24 is seated into the helmet, that's when you can make the necessary adjustments to ensure correct fit of your night vision goggles. You'll place the night vision goggles into the G24, and then you can horizontally adjust for distance from the eyes. You can adjust the tilt of the G24 as well, and then you can adjust the vertical positioning of the unit. Willcox night vision mounting solutions are designed to be as customizable and modular as possible. For this, we've created a wide array of accessories and parts to allow you to mount the night vision system of your choice. Linked below, you'll find our compatibility chart, which highlights popular night vision systems as well as our mounting solutions for those systems. One of the more prominent mounting solutions from Willcox has been the PVS-14 J-arm. This is going to allow you to mount a PVS-14 monocle into your dovetail interface on your G24 unit. The J-arm features a screw to interface with your PVS-14, and from there, simply take the dovetail and lock it into your G24. Once it's in your G24, you can shift the PVS 14 from your left to your right eye, depending on what your preference is. Incorporating end-user refinements and the innovative breakaway feature, the G24 is the preferred mounting solution for end users and Willcox shrouds, accessories, and mounting solutions. Check out the links below and subscribe to the channel for information and news about current and upcoming Willcox products.
All right, so we're back. I understand that the videos weren't the clearest. I apologize for that. We do want to, make sure that we give a make V-Shott happen this year. We've got some. Once again, for anyone just tuning in again, we are 2024 Tnvc and night goggles V-Shott. Or the next tonight and the next 2 nights. And about night vision, thermal, and answering all of your questions we do here at TNVC. We do have a lot of cool giveaways. We're going to be doing some new product announcements that are going to be coming up throughout on those, particularly to win this set of crazy phosphor binoculars. Please go to V-Shott. That's V-Shott with 2 T's, V-S-H-O-T-T. That I unfortunately omitted earlier. That's also helping to put on V-Shott this year, and that's Saffron Optics 1. I talked a little bit about Saffron Optics 1. It came up when we were discussing fuse systems, so I went ahead and I pulled out one of Optics 1's newest products, which is the thermal. The E-Cody, you can see it's extremely compact, fits in front of the objective lens. Thermal sensor lens here, and it projects that thermal image, giving you sort of a fused capability within any standard goggle system. And the NVGs, but you install them on 31s, DTNVS, basically any system that's got a standard PVS 14 style objective lens, as well as different kinds of goggle systems.
About battery life of clip-ons and Fusion. So what's the battery consumption like on the TAD and the E-Cody versus, the BMD Fused or something like that?
Well, so the TAD or E-Cody, you're normally getting about 4 hours on the internal cell. So all of those systems are run by a single CR123 battery. So you're getting about 4 hours of continuous function. One of the things to note is that analog image intensification. So the vast majority of what we're talking. And anytime that you hear us referring to a tube, which I guess is 101, so we probably should have covered that a little bit earlier. But that our struggles with digital technologies like internet streaming services. Most effective and the highest performing night vision. What that means is that inside of this device there's a physical tube. Not exactly photographic, I wouldn't say, but it's processing, though most modern tubes and all of that, but the actual image intensification function that amplifies both visible light and light in the near IR spectrum, so entirely whereas thermal, and then of course you might have heard people talking about things like SWIR, shortwave, and midwave. So they're all kind of various spectrums of light. So analog image intensifier tubes, extremely power efficient on a single battery. PVS-14 on a single battery under ideal conditions can last 40 hours. AA battery. Thermal is super powerful. Especially in extremely cold conditions where batteries tend to have shorter battery lives and stuff like that. Reduced one of the preferred ways to utilize even a fusion system is to use the thermal only intermittently. So yes, the continuous hours on something, if you're not using a battery pack, and then so the other option is to attach it to an external power source, which depending on how many batteries it'll take will give you roughly 10 to 12 hours of continuous function.
It's the same kind of, with a handheld flashlight, it's like a flashlight for an hour and a half straight.
Yeah.
Unless it's an emergency, it's the only light source you have. But intermittent use is a thing. What is it, 10,000 tubes? It's 416 days of constant power applied. I've ever used them for 416 days straight.
On top of that, one thing that I'll throw in there, while we're talking about mil specs and mil standards and all of that, so the 10,000 hour mean time to failure rating, which by the way, mean time to failure rating basically means that gain value is reduced by 50%. So it doesn't even, it's not like after 10,000 hours your tube is just going to shut off and it's not going to be usable anymore.
It can start.
That 10,000 hour military, was requested. It was the standard for the military dating back until since the 80s, and basically it has not been updated since. In testing, most of the most good U.S. Gen 3 image intensifier tubes will 10,000 hours.
It's been on since the 80s.
I mean, there could be. I know that they've done a lot of testing. Basically, take studio lights like this, and they set up a tube in front of it, and just see how long it takes. It takes for that tube to start to degrade. Just pumping it full. Modern Gen 3 tubes are going to last way longer than the 10,000 hours that they're rated for mean time to failure. It's just that the amount of bureaucratic red tape that it would take to update that spec, and
it's
as
a
far
spec,
as the military
right?
is concerned,
it's a bench stone that you can point to.
Yeah.
I want to rant about specs for a second. Can I do it?
Please go for it.
I'm not making light of specs, ladies and gentlemen out there in magical night goggle land. I am kind of going to make light of specs. It's a metric. They're measurable. They're things that we can point to and say this piece of equipment performs to this standard on these 8 things. I don't even know. I can't even keep it straight. And there's an analogy, and I stole this from Bill Pete. because I haven't had an original thought in probably ever. But we get these things called known quantities all the time. Like, how many people in this room have a and you buy it because it's a 1,000,000-mile engine, right? Or an F-150. What do you drive? Tom's rich. Rich on Jesus. Sorry, I'm straying. But like, we don't go into the dealership and go like, hey, can you tell me what the compression is between cylinder 2 and cylinder 5? What's the difference there? Because we don't, because we know that mid-sized Toyota engine, or this Glock, or point to approved, we know it's going to work, and we know the performance, the requirement that we're looking for. So, to the Oklahoma public school system, so I really can't keep track of things like signal noise ratio and figure of merit and center resolution and all that stuff. But I like to be like, I can turn it on and see in the dark. For the guys that are interested in specs, I'm absolutely not clowning on you. Make Augie mad, because I'm going to say, like, if we could get more away from the nerd stuff and get into the software upgrades, it'd be great. But that's, we'll continue to argue about that.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about software upgrades, maybe you do a deep dive into some of the software upgrades that you offer as part of the Tnvc.
How much time you got?
At least 2.5 hours.
We got all night, man.
All right. I mean, I
Buckle up, boys and girls.
no, if there's questions, bring it. I mean, first, like the history of Tnvc with Don. All right. And it's grown, it's morphed over the years, and of this company that kind of lets. Just from a what do we want to talk about first? Prerequisites. Think that's the safe spot
Sure.
for training. We've got to have pretty stringent student vetting procedure. You got to be a U.S. citizen. We've got some checks and balances during the application process to ensure that we've got non-criminal, freedom-loving Americans only coming to class.
No Chinese plants.
No guys that are going to go back and train their organizations. Should be protected and controlled for the freedom of. See, specs, acronyms.
International Traffic and Arms Regulations.
Yeah, we can't violate the company, the people sitting here. It's important to, I don't know, I've got a hang up about the safety and security and surety of the country, so that's important to us. That's student vetting. Other than that, since we don't teach you how to, like, technologies on the end of it, about 50% of the time, the other 50% is on your head. We'd like you to go to a pistol and carbine class before coming to us. And it doesn't have to be, a 3-day package with 2,000 rounds. Look for pistol carbine training in my area on the internet, and it provides a, certificate, or you can point to it and say, it's pretty easy, because we got to ensure that you can use this equipment, the stuff that goes bang, safely before we put you in the dark around 16 other people you don't on your head and a laser on the end of your gun. That's kind of the...
And limited field of view.
Yeah, 40 degrees. I don't want to give away the keys to the kingdom. You got to come to class. But...
Well, I think part of the key there, too, is to point out, so Tnvc has a training program, but it's not a firearms training program.
Yeah.
It's a training program that involves, and not even necessarily because our of them, you know, moonlight with other trainers where they do provide that kind of training. But the Tactical Night Vision Company training program is about how to adapt, you know, how to adapt what you already know about running firearms in and integrate that with the night vision technology.
So you can leverage technology to gain information, to make a decision, to solve a problem, whatever that problem may be. It could be someone at your front door that you're not sure of. It can be you're out hunting. But it goes back to the, you know, how are we leveraging this technology to, as much as we can, and I probably could have mentioned this before about, I can only use this or I can only use this. Complementary stuff, white light, image intensification, it's all complementary. You can use it all together. I mean, there's a lot of people that, hell, I put them together. Instruction and tactical training, even though the T is tactical, our training isn't necessarily. I shot a bunch of ammo and I moved around in the dark. It's a software upgrade, leveraging the technology to use it in the. Not a point I like to drive home in one of our advanced classes is not everybody needs to get shot, and sometimes it's the best day when you never have to shoot anybody or anything. Speaking of classes, we talked about try before you buy. We did that already.
We did.
Want to recap it for the new guys?
Yeah.
Anyone came in late?
Go for it.
So we and not for nothing, we kind of have a limited course catalog. There's other fabulous trainers with a ton of training. And I'm going to point people to them. I get that a lot as the director. Well, do you have this? And the answer is no, but go here. Go see Don. Or a laundry list of all. Zoo, it's education, it's not training. Where you get to touch and pet. Live fire, you'll touch a rifle once and you'll touch a pistol once as we demonstrate some of an MRDS and it's a 2-day package with, and everyone loves slideshows, but you got to get through some of the foundational, you know, why it works, why we have it, how it works, before with a gun in your hands. And then it's flat range. It is a flat range class, and we get after the application of technology and some limited problem solving. But it's really it's shooting in the dark with a limited amount of movement, and it's pretty it's eye-opening. You know, we get some pretty experienced guys coming through the class, and they're like, "Oh, I never considered that, or I never considered X, or Y, or Z." Then we have 201, the artist formerly known as Armed Professional. We made an organizational decision to kind of move from CQB to. I like to tell people, if you've done CQB, you're going to recognize the things you're doing, but it's not CQB, because there's trainers out there that are going to give that to you. But what you'll get is a day of live fire, and then 2 more days. It's a 3-day package. 2 more days of like where the magic happens, and without Keys of the Kingdom, it's pretty impressive flagship course that has blown quite a few minds. We've stolen some TTPs from some other instructors. We fully acknowledge them. And incorporated them in how we do that class, but I'm particularly a little excited about that one because we had a hand in like kind of building that one from scratch. To come to 201, should you be interested, You got to come to like an intro or basic level night vision course. Ours or one of another slightly smaller audience of great instructors out there. I mean, Greenline, I keep Kinetic Consulting. I know Ridgeline Defense offers some good classes. So you don't necessarily have to one. That's about it from like a course description. Do we have any questions from TV land out there?
Where can they find more information about training?
Oh, tnvc.com/training. Gonna get a reboot this week. Some exciting new words. We're gonna change puppy to small dog in a couple places. Yeah, tnvc.com/training is course descriptions, course prerequisites, frequently asked questions. We offer a recurring discount for guys that keep coming back to class for some reason. I've been associated with the company. They just think they keep coming back. It's weird. So sweeten the pot a little bit, or for guys who want to come back to us. And if you can't come to a team, if I answer your email, and here's a tips for young players, if you send an email to training@tnvc.com, it's me. I'm going to help you get to, I'm going to help you synchronize your calendar and get somewhere else. If you can't match our timeline, huge proponent of people getting the training. Does that make sense? I hope so out there in magical goggles land.
So, instructor cadre.
It's a pretty neat mix. There's a bunch of retired soldiers and a bunch of cops and retired cops and active duty cops, and we've actually got like what Pat Rogers, the guy that when I assumed the sash from, that's a funny story. I need to tell you guys sometime later. Not you guys, these guys. From Bill, he made a contract. Like we should have some average Earth people as our instructors, because 40 to 50% of your open enrollment class, the apex of the training pyramid. When you start getting into like CQB and night vision, that's kind of the apex of the training. Like Johnny Appleseed's way down here, and then basic carbines, in the middle. But up here at the very top, that keystone, classes like others, and Team CQB. So with our, we've done 2 of our instructors. That's not full time, everybody. They're part-time W-2. They're artists formerly known as 1099. Tax code changed. Very well. Just from like, hey, I'm an average dude that trains a lot, and they communicate well, and they've got great brains for education, and it's refreshing. Those guys and students.
They don't speak in acronyms all the time.
You should probably come to class. The rest are, retired knuckleheads like me. We got some very, some super smart law enforcement around the company. Time. Problems to open enrollment, and then our contract class network kind of population. They're purpose built. It goes insane. Our LE only training classes, and there's a reason for those, because we can talk things like case law and sustainment of programs they're just not germane to.
also some of them are either, they're literal contract classes and an agency may request training specifically for their organization, or
post-purchase support. Your agency, 20 sets of these and 8 of these and 20 sets of these MFALs, and it's part of the package. And without going too far down a rabbit hole. If there's some LE bean counter out there that's looking for training and they see V-Shott, they're like, holy smokes, we can do this. It's a thing. It's offered either as post-purchase support, or like Augie said, it's just a straight contract class, and we'll send you a package of guys that look like me but are actual cops to come and talk to your agency, not only from the application of the technology, but we've got some pretty solid expertise that's resident elsewhere, I think, but I'm kind of proud of the fact that we got some guys that have cracked the code on Dermo and 1033 and Grant. We also help you get free stuff from Uncle Sam.
Why is that gonna make my head spin? I got tons of free stuff from Uncle Sam. No, I don't.
There's only one thief. Everyone else is trying to get their shit back. That's kind of the training program in a nutshell.
Hey Joe, I got a question about the training program that came. Any plans to incorporate thermals into training program?
That's a plant from somebody. So, okay, so simply put, thermal discussion in Night Fighter 101, and just due to the limited amount of time, 16-hour days, you get to tracer burnout. I mean, it's a thing. So we were balancing time and image intensification, and then never using it in the application. Kind of like I got some stuff in my brain pan. I've got a couple straw man on a hard drive on that computer over there about, what does Night Fighter 301 look like? Is it ever going to be a thing? The short answer is yes. We used to talk about it. We would demo a little bit, but and Tom said it great. From a fighting and navigating perspective, image intensification is the way you got to do business.
Too much liability with thermal shooting people.
Well, yeah, and this is a public service announcement. I'm gonna throw my helmet on and my goggles, and I'm gonna shoot this guy that's 200 meters across my property. I think they call that murder in the States. Speaks to, I'm not a cop, not a lawyer, but it just we get into some gray areas where I don't think we should be. Technology and how we're using it, how we're leveraging it to. The short answer is not right now. It's on the vine. I mean, we got some stuff that's.
You and I have discussed this a little bit before. I mean, an additional issue with that is that there's in the different types of night vision systems that are available, but I don't think I don't think so wide as it is with thermals. You've got thermals that of not just different devices themselves and even quality and performance levels, but different kinds of applications. You say we're going to have a thermal. Going to manage that. You're going to be required to have a thermal clip on to come to the class, or are we going to provide? Right. You bring what you have, but what if you've got like a FLIR breach or a sidekick or something like that, fucking FWSI system going on? It's a lot more difficult, but we have, as you mentioned and alluded to, I mean, we've discussed the integration of thermal with that, and I think that another point that you brought up is kind of important. not just contract classes, but, you know, as far as the training program and everything like that. I mean, rules of engagement, rules of use of force, the things that are going to be acceptable for military in an overseas expeditionary capacity, domestic law and home defense are going to be vastly different. And I think that that's one of the reasons too why it's also important to have, you know, such a mix of instructors as well that have got different backgrounds and can speak to their specific backgrounds and can speak to, you know, what do you potentially do in this situation if you are in one of those very different positions and very different circumstances.
There's a military and LE and commercial and average earth person uses. They're all almost diametrically opposed, like points of a compass that are pointing away from each other. Tom mentioned, you know, the identification. I was using someone else's thermal, you know, and it was on a plane, and the germanium lens was this big around. I mean, it's image intensification systems. I'll be thermal and I squared are night vision, but image intensification systems are. And how do you leverage the capabilities and limitations of the system? You know, probably the most important of the equation. Tied to the technology, tied to what you plan on using, white light, in bands. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. We do something in our 101 class called the PID. These $33,000 goggles in the trash when I get home. To gain information and make a decision.
Well, so would you say that you know, as far as training goes, that there's maybe a particular talking a lot about and you know, ear to hear people from. It's absolutely true. Tnvc sells some of the best night vision products that are available, highest performance. You know, if you want those highest specs, you may have to wait for them. We can get them for you. But I mean, you know, even for example, and this, you know, was this being years back, but when I was involved with the training program, I used to teach with years old Sentinel goggles that I think were on SEAL team at one point in time, covered in laser burns, just the worst frickin' tubes that you have ever seen, most damaged, fucked up tubes. And that's what I would teach with, and because I would show students and I would have them look through the goggles that I was using, it's like all of these things is very much, you know, for the most part, software driven. However, would you say that there is perhaps a particular aspect of equipping yourself and functioning and fighting certain hardware solutions can make a critical difference in your capabilities?
Yeah, and we kind of touched on it a little earlier. Like from a starting perspective, sometimes we get out, where should I start? I might get a good helmet first. It's right, like everyone's like, should I get a laser or a suppressor or goggles? Or nope, get a good helmet. Get comfortable wearing that thing because now it weighs 9 pounds. It's on your head all night long. Start with a good helmet, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't. Comma without pointing names to brands or any of that. Just being agnostic. Meet spec, and the second step of that with the helmet is hold your sizable investment to your head, or an out of spec piece of gear. Again, define your requirements, spend your money wisely. And fall, I keep thinking I'm gonna make Augie's head spin off, but I haven't been able to yet, so I'm gonna go with this one. The best dollar cost per value is by a company called Steiner, I think. It's probably not gonna perform the best as compared to other, high, like awesome stinking. I'm one of my malls, I sound like an asshole. Sorry. But a good multifunction aiming laser, and again, but it's got to have on board. And then, a good dot. Does it have to be the best dot? No. I drown a kitten in the river right now. Night vision capable. Hey, turn it off and then because you don't want to aim actively all the time, or you might want to, but a way is passive, which is looking through your it's kind of cool. It's easier to work. It's what a well-equipped carbine, a well-equipped modern carbine, doesn't have to have. I keep pointing over here because we've got all these fancy guns over here. It doesn't need a, have the latest and greatest rail and switch covers and cable management. And I mean, I've been using the same bag of zip ties from Fastenal I bought like 10 years ago to hold wires to my rails. Capable single spectrum constant on light, a capable dot. That's a rifle perspective. Pistol. It's 2024. I think at least one of your pistols ought to have a dot. We're going to talk more about pistols later. And a white light. There's benefits of pistol, but kind of the position that we come from. We acknowledge that some of those tools in very specialty roles. It's like the single point sling. Breaching shotgun's great. Everything else probably not. Lasers on your. Never been a shield man, never been a police officer. The position that we take with pistols specifically is a dot and a white light, because this is your pistol if you're carrying a pistol. So, and the dot's going to allow you to aim passively. Somebody knows you're there, you're going to want to turn that light on. Sorry, rant off, not complete.
Very good points, Joe. Absolutely. So would you say that having some sort of red dot, using having, in order to effectively use a pistol, in order to, there are some hardware.
There are, but again, like only Sith speaking absolute. It makes it easier. It's the easy button. In class, it said, "I want to teach red dot transition under goggles," because it just flows in front of your face, and that dot just appears as opposed to fishing around and looking for it in the daylight. But a dot on the pistol, absolutely. One, it helps you aim effectively with your stereoscopic or monocular vision. The end of your arms that's inside your focal plane that you set your goggle to. Augie mentioned single focal plane. You're gonna adjust your focus to your expected engagement, distance, requirements, operational area. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how close you've done it. If you've got your focus right here at the end of your arms, guess what? Everything out there is unfocused. So having a dot on the pistol absolutely works better. Am I saying you can't shoot a pistol with goggles on without a dot? No. You can turn your white light on and come under or over your goggles. That makes sense? Define requirements, match those requirements with your budget, and then try. Was that circuitous enough?
I think so. I think so. So it's a couple of issues and reset that connection at least and see if that helps us. So bear with guys for technical issues that we're having with the streaming, but